Welcome to Fly on the Wall, a podcast where you have the opportunity to listen in on a live coaching conversation. Please make sure to like and subscribe. And now for today's episode.
Hey everyone, welcome to Fly on the Wall. Today we're talking with my good friend, Pastor Dave McLain from the Bridge Church. Him and his wife lead an incredible church just outside of Austin, Texas. And today we're talking about how to recognize the early signs of drifting. Let's jump into the conversation.
How can I help the Reverend Dave today?
Hey, thanks, Chris. Man, First of all, thank you so much for not just this coaching opportunity, but man, so many times when you just seem to be used by God so many times to kind of help us process things at the right time. And so thanks a bunch. Thanks for being a friend, a coach, a mentor, role model, so handsome. I mean, there's a lot. I just want to thank you for being, so amazing in so many ways.
I was believing it all
good.
the way up to the word handsome. I don't believe it. That is not the case.
Yeah. No, I think maybe I could start today with just one thought, and is you work with our team all the time. You know, Michelle and I are co-pastors at the church here in Austin area, and so you know our team members. You know the kind of the growth season that we're seeing, and you also know where we want to go. So it's not a surprise this new book that you wrote about saving your church from itself. This by the way, free plug from me, not from you. But I mean,
plug.
It's so good. Hey, and not. I mean, I'm not lying to you, but I just came from our staff meeting today, and again, we're reading this book together as a team, taking a week at a time. Yeah. We just spent the last 30 minutes talking about alignment and misalignment, and we just read that chapter 2 together. So really, that's where my mind is. I want to jump in there if I can. Where we're in a season of growth. We've got these not just new ministries in the church that are starting, but we're trying to get people to take on new leadership, to join serving teams. Even Sunday was our kickoff Sunday. So we had small group signups. It was kind of a big day, big win, all that. But in the midst of it, I just keep thinking, we're getting all these people to come on board and do what God's called us to do. And we got to make sure they're all on the same page. So I guess my question for you initially would just be, when it comes to misalignment, how do you, just all these chapters of the book we just read kind of run together, but how do you recognize it first? What are some of the first signs when enthusiasm is high and everyone's excited, but there's going to come a time where someone starts to pull in a different direction? What's the first thing you recognize, whether it's in your leadership team or in your staff? What's the first indicator that you got to address something?
That's a great question. It is I mean, the book talks about the 6 subtle behaviors that tear teams apart, but I do think overall, first and above anything else, and I'm not saying that's the case for you, because I don't think that is the case for you, but there has to be a commitment from the main leader or leaders, in this case, both you and Michelle leaders, that you are willing to address the difficult and have the difficult conversation. Again, that's not what you're asking, but I think people are listening have to realize that there are times to have the difficult conversation. You got to be committed to it. You wait too long, you're going to end up paying a heck of a lot more. But the signs of when there is leader drift, because that's really what I talk about in the book a lot. It's like there's this drift. It's a funny thing, because I was doing a show last week, a radio show, and they're all, leader drift's not really a word. I go, I like to make up my own words. That way I can come up with my own definitions. I got my own little vocabulary going here, buddy. But it's about that behavior. It's the behavior and the attitude when it starts to drift away from the leader or leaders / vision. So the sign of it will be different all the time, but I'll give you some of the signs that I think are important. And then I'll give you an example from my own life. One is when people come to staff meetings with more problems than they do solutions. One is when you hear a little bit of negative talk and somehow that person's name is somewhere in the mix all the time. When you begin to sense that they bring up tension. Everything they say just creates tension. I talk about isolation in there, when you see them starting to pull away from everybody else. Those are the kind of things where I think they are nuances. They're like, they're not, sometimes it's blatant, I mean, honestly, wouldn't it be easier if the person who was drifting would just flat out come to you and go, I can't stand you, Pastor Dave? That would just make life easier.
Cut to the chase.
Just say what you want. But when or just go and steal some money, like make it obvious that you're going crazy on me. But when it's a little, you know what I mean? But when it's that little attitude where you can't like call them on the attitude, it's there, but it's not enough to call them on. That's where you want to try to catch it. But that's the trickier part. It's going in the wrong direction, but it's not enough to call. They haven't blatant. They haven't, yelled at you and your wife. They haven't stolen a bunch of money. It's just that little attitude that's starting to pick up, and you got to catch that there. That behavior, the isolation, the pride, when they start creating subgroups. When you notice that they're always hanging out with 2 or 3 people, and you're like, you just know something's there. It's a little negative. When I had someone go negative on me and start heading down a wrong path, here's a nuance that I recognize. That person, you're a learner. Like I know right now you're looking down because you're taking notes. I have no doubt you are a note-taking machine. And there you are. You are a note-taking machine. And I love it because you're such a learner. And I just love working with you. But years ago, there was a guy on our team. He brought us notepad every time I talked. And I noticed his attitude started to change a little bit. I noticed behavior started to change. And then after 1 or 2 times we met for breakfast or coffee or something or whatever it was, he didn't bring a notepad.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I used on him, in the sense of not used on him, but that's what I called out on him. Like, you don't bring notepads anymore to these meetings because you don't think I have anything to add to you, which means that you think you've caught up and now you're the highest level leader in the organization. And it just immediately started, and it created a real healthy conversation. But the point was, it was a nuance that you're looking for. And so it's kind of hard because it's not blatant. When it's blatant, it's almost too late. And you got to catch it when it's like, in your heart, Michelle, your wife knows it in your heart. You guys are feeling like something's there. And then you have that conversation. You and I talked about, hey, this is what I'm noticing. Can you speak into that?
Yeah.
Allow them to speak into it. But here's what I would say to sum it up. I wouldn't be afraid to have the conversation, even if you don't feel you have enough evidence. Because just because you don't have enough evidence, just be like, I could be wrong about this, but here's what I'm feeling. You know what you're telling that person? Even if they go, oh no, everything's fine. Even if they say that, you're letting them know, I'm noticing something. And they'll remember, like, you're not afraid to call it out. And that's good.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
It's difficult.
Man, this is part of what we were just talking about. Again, this is the chapter we're working on this morning. So it's fresh on my mind. But I gave them that same tool that you just mentioned. It's like, how do we know? Some people just have a gift of discernment. Michelle definitely does. I don't particularly. I mean, I think God gives wisdom, but I don't always sense it as early as she senses it. She's got that other, that other sense out there, but like it's whatever this is called. I don't know.
Sixth sense.
Gift of discernment.
Like
yeah.
The movie.
Yeah. I see dead people. But I think it was just like, when you're trying to figure out if there still is a heart, if they still have a heart to be on the team and they still love you. I think you've mentioned that before. When the heart's still there, you're good. But when their heart's gone, it's kind of too late. Mm-hmm. But we talked about that specific thing of saying, hey, I've noticed that. And that's based on truth. It's not based on guessing. I've noticed that. And then, hey, can you speak into that? And giving them a chance. We're still assuming that they have a heart to learn, that they have a heart to want to be a part of the team. Right. I think I'll add this to you. You talked about the positives at the end of that chapter about the positives of an aligned team. And one of the things that you mentioned there was that you'll spend less time in the behavior circle and more time in the strategy circle. Again, I could totally vouch for that, because when you either have a person who's not in alignment leave, or you have a person who is out of alignment come back into sort of a biblical submission and alignment, not just to the leader, but even to the team, I can imagine it just opens up so much more energy and life for the team. Like, you get to spend more time in the things that you're excited about and that God's called you to, without having to fight with that tension in the room, the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about.
Yep.
No, it says the drama has been removed. I love that. Hey, so let me ask you this real quick before we change the topic. Just in terms of team alignment, we're talking about staff alignment and the personalities, and there's a whole lot more again in the book, which I highly recommend. But in terms of the ministries being aligned, you introduced us to a concept before about 3x3, right? Which is trying to get all the ministries to not just work in their own areas, because if we're not careful, they will establish their own wins, their own strategies, their own measuring sticks, their own. But can you remind me, or maybe you have another thought on that same line, but the idea of getting everybody together, the 3x3 I remember was about getting teams to own some priorities. That was like 3 things over the next 3 months, or three in 90 days. But do you still practice that? You still recommend that? Or are there other thoughts you have about making sure that we keep not just people in alignment, but teams in alignment? How do we make sure, like in staff meetings, we don't just do calendar and events, but we continue to emphasize the fact that we're all moving together and we're in alignment as ministries?
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, the 3x3 is 3 things you want to do in the next 3 months. Major things. Now, it doesn't mean that everybody's going to be involved every single time, but you want it to be an opportunity for everybody to participate in adding value to it, saying something, speaking to it. They're not going to speak into certain things in the youth department that you're talking to the youth pastor about. That's just not the role. But when you're like, man, we've got to do a better job with, well, and right now you guys are killing it with recruiting. So recruiting, okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to figure this out? What measurables can we get in the next 90 days? Okay, that's goal number 1 for the next 90 days, or 3 things in 3 months. So again, I don't think it's every time people are being a part of the doing of it. I think a lot of times they are, but everybody's a part of owning it. Everybody's a part of participating in it. Everybody's a part of adding value to it and speaking into it. I think that's the emphasis of the 3x3. And plus, it's freedom for the pastors like you and Michelle to go, we got 10 things we're going to work on. They're on the board. These 3 are first. And at least, I don't know about you, but I like when I can see it on the board. I'm like, okay, it's coming. It's driving me nuts right now. It's not in the top 3, but it's number 4 or 5. And so it's coming. It makes me feel good that we're going to deal with those things. Now, as it pertains to getting that team, I think that helps 3x3s, but getting the team moving in the same direction, the overemphasis of mission is always important. It never goes away. You always have to be laying down the mission and laying down the vision and making sure that we are all moving towards that. I think the other thing is a reminder of the mission, a reminder of the vision, the telling of the stories, the values that we share, the values that are particular to the Bridge Church, emphasizing those. A lot of times I'll find that guys with visions, values, it'll be 6 months, a year and a half before they've even talked about it in a staff meeting. And I think it doesn't have to be a 2-hour discussion in a staff meeting. It could be as simple as, hey, I just want all these things we're talking about, guys, today, all these celebrations reminds me of our mission. All these celebrations reminds me of our vision. All these reminds me of that 3rd value that we have. So it's not like you got to go do a 30-minute teaching on it, but there's just constant focus of you're realigning constantly, and it's usually just a tweak. It's really just a statement. But to me, it's about connecting their ministries and the celebration to the mission, vision, and values of the church. Again, it's not a big teaching. It's a short.
Let me tell you something. Something that happened just in today's meeting that was kind of interesting. So we've got a Serve 101 day coming up this Sunday. So it's, for those that don't know, for us, we've taken that as one of our steps. That means that, hey, they've come to a party with the pastor or some kind of a meet and greet, and now we're trying to get them to serve. And so we've decided we can do that best during one of our 2 Sunday morning services. Well, 3 if you count the bilingual service. But like during that 9 o'clock service, we just do, a Serve 101. And the idea is that every ministry is represented there with a person. Well, some of the ministry leaders are tied up. For example, the worship and production, they can't really leave the stage and come down and sit in a room and talk to new people. So we said, we've been doing it where they have to send a representative from their ministry to go and kind of give a 60-second commercial, but then also be there to answer questions and all that.
Yeah.
So but because there's been a little bit of a strain on getting people there, and are the people that are there best, one of our team members today just said, hey, how about if we do a video, that we could just show a video, particularly in the worship and production area. Let's do a 1-minute video that we could play instead of having a person there, so we can speak directly to our heart. And on first pass, that sounded like a great idea. Like, it's cleaner, it might be succinct, it might be whatever. And we were about to do it until, then Michelle mentioned, hey, one of our priorities is that we're raising up leaders. And one of the things we never want to keep, never want to forget is, like, we got to be developing communicators. And so it led into this whole discussion of, okay, are we actually giving the person who we asked to represent the ministry, are they qualified? Have they ever done it before? Then if so, if not, then why haven't we trained them? We can't just, we need to give them bullet points, have a little practice run through, give them honest feedback, have a critique culture where we can say, hey, that part wasn't so hot, but here, focus on this and tell it why. And so we realized, it's actually a whole lot more complicated to get people to come and represent these ministries when we as leaders of those ministries could do a better job. But the reason why we need to be duplicating ourselves in those other people is because now we're actually raising them up, not just promoting our ministry.
Right.
So the goal is, let's get more people in the ministry. Okay, but isn't the other goal underneath that goal, that's maybe even more important, that we're raising up more people to be able to lead those ministries and take ownership in those ministries and have voice in those ministries. So a video might be more succinct to get people recruited, but spending those extra meetings or 2 or 3 meetings and touch points to get that person who's not comfortable communicating to be ready to that's actually the bigger win.
All right.
Over the long term. So
it is.
100%. That's the conversation that we had this morning on developing these leaders versus just trying to get to a quick thing. So
the one thing that I always say about that, because really it's easier for me to do it, but then I gotta go back and I got to train people, and that takes longer. This is basically what you're saying.
Yeah,
everybody has said that, but here's a great statement to relate to the staff. If you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, bring others. We want to go far at the Bridge. We don't want to just go fast. We want to go far. We want to have more campuses, reach more people, just build deep roots, we want our vision to go so far. So if you want to go fast, go by yourself. You're right, you can. Mm-hmm. But if you want to go far, you got to go with others. And at the Bridge, we're going to go far, because and I think that's a way of summing everything up, and maybe you can wrap that around for the next
Good. Good. Can I change topic?
Yeah. A little bit. We're good.
It's related, but somewhat different. So you were with us, a year or so ago when we were making a really big leap in terms of our emphasis on volunteers. Like you helped us. It was one of our 3x3s. We set a goal. We all met it. Everybody had to own it. The goal might have been, I think the goal was 50 or 75 new volunteers. And so, every ministry is, we can get 6, or we need 10, or we need 2, and all that. But then one thing that you helped us figure out, and I guess we're back at that place again, is just how do we ensure that after someone is recruited, that they're still getting great training, great care, that we're not, we're not just like glad they signed up and now they're ours, they're slaves in our organization. I would like to ask you again, just refresh my memory a little bit. You may have something else you'd rather share, but I remember you talking something about a 90-day window, or helping explain, help us as the recruiters and the leaders think through better, what does it look like for the person who's being recruited to join? And because I can tell you that doesn't go away. We are always trying to recruit, and we're always trying to make sure that the people we already recruited don't get discouraged or forgotten or burned out. But can you walk through that again? What have you seen as helpful, whether it's that tool or some other tool, to make sure that we can keep our volunteer excitement and alignment? There's that word again, but that alignment and excitement going.
Yeah. Well, I think there's 2 parts of it. There is that 90-day window we talked about. And then there is, once you're done with the 90-day window, what is going to be the rhythms that sustain alignment and connection? So you got a 90-day window. And then you've got what are the rhythms that create the alignment and the connection and the ongoing investment into your team. 90-day window, just as a refresher, is just like, okay, so I joined the Bridge Church. I'm now a greeter. Okay, great. That I just signed up. We're all good. What happens in that first 90 days? It's from training to even appreciation. Hey, and again, I think it needs to be systematic for every department. I think every department can follow the same system. So for instance, all right, you joined. Okay, do you get an email or a video from the pastor? Welcome them to the dream team. 5 days later, do they get a little gift basket at their house or something? Is that what's going to happen? I'm not saying that's what's happening, but I'm saying that could happen. Okay. Now they're like, oh my gosh, I got a little video from Pastor David and Michelle, and then I got a little gift basket a week later. This is really cool. 30 days later, what's going to happen? Don't know. It could be a check-in point. Hey, I'm calling you personally to check in to see how your first 30 days have gone since you've been in ministry. That could come from their captain, excuse me, their leader, whoever that is. Day 60, it might be a survey. Hey, we value what you think. We'd love your feedback from Pastor David and Michelle. You've been on the team now for 2 months, and we just want your whatever. Then on day 90, it may be something else. But it's something in that 90 days where a little bit of gifts, a lot of touch points that could be automated by you and Michelle, and then also by their own leader themselves. Feedback, what your opinion matters. What's it been like to be on the team the last 2 months? What's the one thing you've noticed? What's the one thing you would improve? Just two quick little survey questions that could be done on text. Just not like 20 questions, but like, what have you noticed? What do you like best? What would you improve? And something like that. And then that way, that 90-day window, again, it's back to that thing of, the Bridge is in the biggest state in the United States, Texas. So, I don't know if we'll ever be at the Bridge, the fastest growing in America or in Texas or the biggest in Texas, but we will be the healthiest. And then I love that one. And then the second one is we will have the best onboarding system. That's in our control. I think there's a lot of sovereignty in what God decides to do with biggest and fastest growing churches. I think there's just a lot of sovereignty there. But deciding that, man, when we onboard people for the first 90 days, that's just a choice. You're either the best at it or you're not. There's there's no big talent behind it. There's no sovereignty behind it. There's no, I got to pray about it for 3 months behind it. There's just, you choose to be the best in onboarding people or you're not. And that's it. And once you just choose to do it, do it. And then once the 90 days is up, now we go into how do we sustain and create rhythms of connection. So you have Dream Team. I think what's that, once or twice a year? Dream Team weekend?
Twice, yeah. Twice.
Okay. So now that's a connection point. But now I'm the head over the children's department. I'm the head over the children's department. My question, I think the thing needs to be at the Bridge is, I think what we need to do is make sure that every person at the head of the children's, head of the youth, head of the worship, head of the first impressions, whatever, that they, after that 90 days is up, they are what's the rhythm? Is it once a month that they send out a podcast with a little encouraging note to the team and saying, you guys are great, and here's a little podcast on whatever, some devotion or something that's really cool. And then once a month they're sending communication, not just the scheduling, which is probably what most people tend to lean on.
Yeah.
But once a month we're adding value. And maybe in between the Dream Team meetings, which are probably 5 to 6 months apart, what if you threw in, what if we threw in, so let's say you did Dream Team January and June, I'm just making this up. Well, what if like in March and October, each department did something with their teams? So, and that's just part of the regular thing. So they get a monthly schedule, that's for sure. They get a monthly encouragement. Maybe it's an email with a podcast hooked to it or attached to it. Maybe it's a little video. And then twice a year, they've got a little barbecue in their backyard for all the people in First Impressions. And it's not for the children, it's not for the youth. It's just First Impressions, coming there, hanging out, building relationship, loving on them, telling them how great they are. It's just a barbecue and a pool party in the backyard type of thing. But that becomes the norm and the rhythm. So we have a rhythm that we follow in the 90 days, and we follow that in duplication form. And then we have a rhythm by which we invest in them. We do what do we do monthly, and what do we do twice a year? And that's the way I would set it up at the Bridge. I think because we got the dream team, and that's 2 times a year. Let's say, hey, first impressions person, you got to do monthly encouragement, and twice a year in between the dream team meetings, twice a year, barbecue, karaoke night at your house, whatever you guys are into.
Yes.
Yes.
That's it. I got friends in low places. That's my go-to song right there. Bring it on. Bring it on karaoke.
So, but now that just becomes the norm. And to me, that's what creates, in my opinion, it helps to create a sticky church. Because they're going to build relationships. You've heard me say it 1,000 times. People come for the message, stay for the relationships. That's what we're doing. So now, again, fast forward 6 months from now, 8 months from now, 9 months from now, you run into Tom and Joanne in the hallway, and you're like, hey, Tom and Joanne, you guys still on the first impressions team? Yeah, we've been on for 7 months. We love it. We get monthly podcasts from our leader. We just had a barbecue a month ago, man. We met a bunch of new friends. Now we're getting sticky. And now what we're doing, Pastor Dave, is we're causing not David and Michelle, we're causing the next level leaders to create community, to create tribe, to learn how to invest with these monthly. Now they're investing in monthly emails or sending out podcasts, and they're creating relationship. And it's not just coming from the top. It needs to come from the top, but it's also got to come out down in tribes.
Man. Yeah.
And they just follow that rhythm. It's just a rhythm.
Because really, again, and I'm just thinking of that tribe, use that word tribes again. I mean, when they have that sense of ownership, even if it's not structured ministry, which we hope it always will. I mean, we'd love to have more structure so that everybody who goes in the hospital gets, 9 calls, and everybody who, has a baby gets a shower and all those things. But in the absence of those, and our church, as it has grown, it has made those touch points harder for us to manage, even though, our heart, mine and Michelle's heart is to be that pastoral kind of leaders. But, we're just, I get
it. It doesn't always happen.
Like we just don't know people. And I mean, there's people that are coming now that we don't know. We don't know at all, let alone we don't know when they're sick. Right. But it creates all of that ownership happens at a lower level, organizationally speaking. It's a more organic, more personal, it's probably more sustainable level.
Sustainable, and it's sustainable. It's organic. It's more relational. You're moving quicker and faster from ministering to people to ministering through people. That helps. It takes culture, because we said culture is always starts at the top and supported at the bottom. It cascades the culture down, and now there's ownership. But they're not going to know how to do that. So all you right? I mean,
this is it. You're
right.
You're reading my mind, because
follow the map. That's all we do.
Yeah.
And
that's really helpful.
Map.
Because it's got to be something that we're specifically telling. I mean, it's one thing for us to say, and I think you and I've talked about this before, but if we tell a new person that we've asked to recruit, our small group leader, who's going to not just lead a group, but lead the small groups, in our case now, that's Jimmy, or we're saying, hey, what we're wanting you to do is not just this job description, but the job description either needs to include, or it needs to sort of evolve around the idea that what we're really wanting you to do, if you narrowed it all down, is we're wanting you to create a tribe of people, or a sense of ownership and community. And as long as that is in keeping with, again, the greater vision of the house, then why not have lower and lower levels of people involved in community? Because then, if that expectation is not given clearly from us to them, then they're going to either not do it, or they might overstep and create. One of my questions to you, which we don't have to backtrack now, but was about silos. And, I've heard that term, as being so negative, but just silos are these gatherings of people that really don't care about the other people in the other ministries, and we don't want that to happen.
No.
But if we're creating through the leaders we trust this culture that we want to see happen, and it works its way down, then there's still alignment, but lots more connection.
A lot more connection. And the thing that I would add to that is you have to be specific. Okay, so hey, Jimmy, you're taking over X. This is what if you say to them, we want you to build tribe, well, that is a huge room for interpretation.
Right. Yeah.
What does that mean? Or we want you to build community. Okay, well, once a year I'll have a barbecue at my house. Oh, no. We want you to, here's the real thing. We don't want you to just manage this area. We want you to lead it. And this is what leading looks like to us. And I think it should be in the job description. Boom. Okay, here's the reporting structure. Here's why your job's important. Here's my job in a sentence, all the stuff you and I've been through. But also, here's what the first 90 days looks like in a minute, anytime anybody joins the ministry. And here's what the rhythms of our ministry departments look like. We expect monthly emails that attach some beneficial thing. And we expect twice a year connection points, barbecues, whatever, that run in between our dream team meetings. Yeah. And now you're not leaving room for interpretation. Hey, build community, make it sticky. They're like, what in the world is that supposed to mean? But if you just say, this is exactly the plan we follow. Now you can do a little more than this, but this really is the lowest bar. This is what we expect. Now that becomes a new expectation for the church and for the leaders, and everybody starts following it. And now all of a sudden, relationships are happening 3 and 4 or 5 levels down from the top. And that's what we want. That's how we sustain 1,500, 2,000, 4 campuses. That's how you sustain it. So,
yeah.
All right. Hey, man, dude, I hate to cut it off, but I got to jump on the next Zoom call. But, dude, your questions are always spot on. I love that.
Thanks, man.
I wish I had your note-taking heart in every leader I work with. Love it.
No, man. Thank you always for taking time to pour into our team, whether it's a quick call like this or just when we get to have you in person. Man, you just add so much value. We love you. We appreciate what you do. We believe in Church Boom, Church Rescue, all that jazz. Anyway, so thank you, man. Yep. I pray you get the energy you need for the 27 other coaching calls you're going to do today.
Me too. All right. I love you guys. I'll see you, buddy.
All right, man. See you, Chris.
Thanks for stopping by today. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and to be on the lookout for more podcasts from Fly on the Wall. See you next time.